Sarah, how do you feel the white paper's been received by school leaders?
So the Education Secretary released the white paper on Monday the 20th of March and it was long anticipated. It was 12 years, almost to the month, since the last white paper in November 2010, which, as you know, is a lifetime in education, 12 years. And I guess at this moment in time it was never going to land particularly well because of the challenges that school leaders are still facing. It's been a very operational 2 years. School leaders are still facing quite high levels of staff absence due to COVID. We've got significant learning gaps within the student population and the young people, and also some of the challenges around financial deficits and looking at deficit budgets, which are causing school leaders sleepless nights. So I guess it was never going to land particularly positively at this time.
Do you feel the white paper is addressing the key priorities and challenges of school leaders, or is it simply restating old strategies?
So a quick poll on the release of the paper indicated that 94% of senior leaders didn't think that the white paper addressed current issues within education. I do think there's some restating. I think the targets around English and maths, for example, they're laudable completely and they are gateway qualifications for young people, and I think that we can all get behind them as an imperative for raising standards. They seem to be quite narrow, so the ambition within the paper around in 2030 the average GCSE grade going up to grade 5 from a grade 4.5 in 2019, and then the average expected standard being achieved by young people at the end of Key Stage 2 trying to achieve 90% by 2030. Very, very plausible targets, however perhaps a little narrow, and in the sense that it was a missed opportunity for us to embrace a lot of work that schools have been doing around wider curriculum development and perhaps broadening that love of the arts, developing cultural capital for young people, and really embedding a much broader characterful education and how we might endeavour to place value on that rather than on a very narrow curriculum focus around English and maths. Disadvantaged young people is still a very big concern in the sector, rather than catching young people up as they fall behind, recognising that actually some of these young people start behind, and it would have been really nice, I think, for the paper to have outlined some of those strategies that are being used in schools successfully and to share some of those, but also perhaps to look at the research and evidence around what we might do to help those young people stay up with their peers so that we're reducing that disadvantage gap.
How do you feel about the introduction of a minimum length for the school week?
So the 32.5-hour school week, I think, is a bit of a misleading representation within the paper. There are only 14% of schools nationally who don't already deliver that. And I think those schools that don't have a very good reason why they don't. Perhaps they're rural communities where travel is a challenge. I think there is a huge amount of discretionary effort that schools get from their staff teams in terms of running extracurricular clubs, revision clubs, trips and visits, which take an awful lot of organising for young people to participate in. And that is at risk if we start to legislate for a 32.5-hour working week. I also think that within that there is no real evidence around the quality, and surely it's better to have a real quality of delivery rather than determining a length of presenteeism. I think the other challenge within that white paper is around the parent pledge for similar reasons. You know, parent pledge about early intervention around English and maths and getting that support from parents for young people to attend, when actually we should be acknowledging that most schools have those things in place already, and perhaps by directing it and dictating that happens, it potentially is a cause of friction between the school and the parent, and that is not supportive of a child's progress and learning experience through school.
Are there any positive developments that you feel are addressed for school leaders in the white paper?
Absolutely. I think I'm a huge advocate of school-to-school support. I've seen myself how impactful that can be, and I think legislating for MATs to work together for the benefit of a wider community can only be a positive thing. There are great MATs out there who do that already and who really see the benefit of that, and who work with other schools no matter what their structure within their local community for the benefit of the children and young people, both now and in the future, and also their families. families as well. And I think that's real credible and real strength of the white paper that there is suggestion that that's going to be legislated for. I think the other thing is the £100 million of investment in the Education Endowment Foundation to really continue to fund that turn and change in direction that the sector have had towards evidence-based research and research to inform practice in classrooms and in schools around implementation planning, around literacy. That can only be a positive thing. I think a caveat I would put on that, although it is a positive, is that there are other avenues of research and evidence, and I think we just need to be open-minded about the research and evidence that we use to inform best practice.
How would you summarise your thoughts about the white paper? What are the key messages to take away for school leaders?
So it's been a long time coming. I think, sadly, I'm a little bit disappointed. I think the concluding part of the white paper, which talks about this being a start of a process, I think school leaders would have liked to have seen something more concrete around how we develop and the strategies that we're going to use to achieve these targets. And as we said with regard to curriculum, would have liked to have seen something that broadens that out and recognises the great work that schools have been doing around curriculum development rather than just a very narrow focus. However, it has been 12 years since the last one. The importance of teaching hasn't gone away. So the theme of the last one, and I think the opportunity for all in terms of that young people and the levelling up agenda that the government are trying to strive for, can only be of benefit to young people. So as a vehicle for change, I think it's perhaps a little bit limited, but in terms of having a focus to start to drive improvement and start to drive moves working forward for children and young people, it is, as the paper describes, a start.